August 1945. The Second World War had reached its most grueling crescendo. The Nazi war machine had already collapsed in Europe, but in the Far East, the Japanese Empire refused to yield. To the global leaders in Washington and London, the cost of defeating Tokyo seemed unthinkable. An Allied invasion of the mainland was projected to cost millions of lives. Inside the underground bunkers of Tokyo, the Supreme War Council, known as the Big Six, was locked in a fanatical gridlock. They were prepared to sacrifice 20 million of their own citizens in a final suicidal defense known as Ketsu-Go. The world stood on the precipice of an unending apocalypse. The empire was bleeding, yet its pride remained unbroken. In Washington, strategic planners worked day and night, knowing that a conventional invasion would decimate what remained of East Asian civilization. The atomic bombs were ready, waiting at isolated air bases to unleash a fiery sky upon the enemy. To the north, the Soviet legions were massing on the Manchurian border, ready to strike a decisive blow. But the spark that would finally shatter the resolve of the samurai empire did not come from a massive armada. It came from the shadows. It came from a single room, a stolen set of codes, and an operative whose identity would change the course of history in just 72 hours. To understand the tactical genius of this operation, we must look at the secret crypto war. The Allies had broken some codes, but Tokyo's deepest secrets remained locked. The Imperial Navy's special grid code was a nightmare of encryption, shifting patterns constantly to evade Allied ears. The Japanese military structure relied on total secrecy. Every order was heavily guarded, signed only by the highest elite. But in neutral territories like Switzerland, the lines between enemy and ally blurred. This is where the leak began. Codename, the Horizon Archer. A high-ranking asset embedded deep within the Axis communications network made his move. He had done the impossible. The ultimate strategic layout of Japan's air defenses was now in Allied hands. Using a miniature camera, the spy photographed pages of defensive coordinates under the cover of night. The spy targeted the communication loop that connected Tokyo to its remaining airfields across the mainland. Tokyo knew something was wrong. Counterintelligence units began tracking a ghost signal within the capital. The file on the mainland air defense network was hidden away, ready to be transmitted to Allied command. The 72-hour countdown had begun. Hour zero. The transmission window opened. The spy had less than 24 hours before the Imperial codes would cycle and change. From a hidden room in the heart of Tokyo, the Horizon Archer began transmitting the encrypted coordinates through Morse code. To cover his tracks, the spy set fire to the central filing cabinet, staging a bureaucratic accident to delay suspicion. Alarms blared across the military district. Imperial guards rushed to extinguish the fire, completely oblivious to the theft. The encrypted data traveled over radio waves, cutting through the Pacific storm straight to Allied listening posts. By the 12th hour, the decrypted files landed directly on the desk of General Douglas MacArthur in Manila. The intelligence shattered Allied assumptions. It revealed exactly what Tokyo had been hiding from the world. Over 5,000 kamikaze aircraft, completely missed by Allied scouts, were hidden inside camouflage caves in the northern mountains. The Allies realized the Japanese were planning a massive coordinated suicide strike on the invasion fleet within 3 days. The Allies had less than 48 hours to strike these hidden positions before the Japanese trap snapped shut. Hour 36. The order was given. The largest targeted airstrike of the Pacific War was launched from Allied airfields. Instead of bombing cities, the bombers struck with mathematical precision, wiping out Tokyo's primary fuel reserves in Honshu. The camouflaged mountain caves became tombs. Precise bomb strikes collapsed the entrances, destroying the kamikaze fleet on the ground. News of the precision strikes sent the Supreme War Council into utter panic. They realized their secret plans had been compromised. The dreaded Kempeitai military police locked down Tokyo, desperately searching for the source of the leak. Without fuel, the remaining Japanese aircraft were rendered completely useless. The Empire's wings were clipped. The Horizon Archer knew his mission was done. In a neutral embassy restroom, he destroyed his true identity papers. Before the military police could trace him, the spy slipped into a diplomatic vehicle and vanished into history. To ensure Tokyo understood the hopelessness of their situation, Allied battleships opened a massive bombardment along the coast. Allied command looked at the reconnaissance photos. The spy's intelligence had successfully paralyzed the Imperial defense. We now reach the final 24 hours of this 72-hour crisis. The chessboard was clear, and Tokyo had no moves left. Emperor Hirohito stood alone in his study. The weight of an entire civilization hung on his decision to surrender. Inside the palace, royal officials wept openly, realizing that the unbroken line of the imperial dynasty was facing total defeat. Fanatical officers attempted a midnight coup to seize the palace and stop the surrender, leading to violent clashes in the corridors. The coup failed. A microphone was brought into the hidden radio studio. The emperor was ready to speak to his people. The emperor's words were etched onto a vinyl master disc in absolute secrecy to be broadcast to the nation at noon, August 15, 1945. For the first time in history, the ordinary citizens of Japan heard the voice of their emperor declaring an end to the war. Across the fronts, imperial soldiers dropped their weapons. The fanatical defense was over. War Minister Anami, unable to bear the dishonor of surrender, wrote his final poem before committing ceremonial seppuku. The flag of the rising sun was slowly lowered across the mainland. The 72 hours had ended and the empire had fallen. September 1945. Tokyo Bay played host to the final act of the global tragedy. The USS Missouri stood ready. General Douglas MacArthur signed the formal surrender dockets, sealing the peace that a lone spy had accelerated. The Japanese delegation stood silently, accepting the end of their imperial ambitions. Hundreds of Allied aircraft filled the skies over Tokyo Bay in a massive victory parade, signaling a new dawn for civilization. The war was won, but the identity of the Horizon Archer remained buried in top-secret vaults for decades. His actions proved that a single individual, operating in the shadows, could tilt the scales of global destiny. This was a true turning point that saved millions of lives and reshaped modern civilization. The spy vanished into the civilian world, an unsung hero who ended a war in 72 hours. If you want to explore more hidden stories of history, consider supporting our channel. Thank you for watching Kings and Generals Style Chronicles. We will catch you on the next one. Back in the intelligence corridors, the immediate priority was the destruction of evidence. No paper trail could remain. As the final orders left Tokyo, the city was masked in absolute structural silence under the strict blackout rules. The decryption loop revealed a deeply fractured high command, struggling to keep communication lines alive. On the oceans, Imperial flagships reported a sudden drop in incoming command transmissions. Under the dark waves, Allied submarines monitored naval frequencies, waiting for signs of a counterstrike. Clerks on both sides of the ocean worked to the brink of physiological and mental collapse. The diplomatic paperwork of surrender would soon turn secret data into binding geopolitical reality. The threat of discovery remained until the last minute, requiring immediate chemical destruction of materials. In Allied nations, millions poured into the streets to celebrate an end to the global nightmare. The armor of the empire was left to rust on the shores of a newly peaceful ocean. The tools of espionage were simple, yet their cargo changed civilization. The final strategic updates showed Japan surrounded on all sides by overwhelming force. Even at the end, some officers preferred death over the shame of laying down their steel. Radar nets tracked the final bombers as they returned safely to base. The strikes destroyed the last infrastructure capable of supporting the Imperial fleet. Global newspapers screamed the news that the world had been waiting for. Times Square and London streets lit up in a display of absolute joy. When counterintelligence finally found the safe, it was empty. The ghost had flown. The last diplomatic planes carried the secret operators out of the war zone forever. With the final signatures, the modern world was officially born from the ashes of empire.